Hey guys, hey, this is Mr. Shooning, and I'm going to give you your notes on video today. So please listen. Please don't just click through real fast. Uh, and turn my voice off. I really need you to hear the rest of the story, otherwise you won't learn what needs to be learned. So we're going to learn a little bit about the Greece, ancient Greece, known as antiquity, also known as uh, kind of the beginnings of things like democracy and that. So here's a map, if you will. So here is the Mediterranean Sea, as you'll see. And then all of this yellow, all of these islands, all of this is considered Greece. Down here is the island of Crete, where the Minoan people are. But anyway, this is Greece. You notice it's a lot of peninsulas surrounded by water, a lot of islands. There's actually thousands of islands that is part of Greece. So that's going to definitely impact how they do things. So let's just move on. Get ready to take some notes. The geography of Greece, geography being the study of land, basically made up of extremely mountainous, rocky land, um, really hard to farm on, and then also surrounded by water on three sides. We call this a peninsula. Because of this, to make a living, guys, they really can't farm. So they're going to be fishers, uh, sailors, traders. They're going to use the water as an advantage to them. To just make a living and trade with others. And because they don't have a lot of farming, because it's too rocky, um, they're going to have to trade with others and use the water. They are able to grow a little bit of wheat, barley, olives, and grapes, and that's still true today. So they are very famous for olive oil, and of course their wine that they make from the grapes still today. Um, about, I believe, 20% of the land is farmable; the rest is not. So because of that, right, the water and the mountains, it really divided the Greek people. So even though they were Greek and they spoke Greek and they kind of had that, culture together, they were actually very separate. They had separate city states, separated by the mountains and the islands and the water. And many times they didn't even like each other. In fact, many times these city states, even though they're Greek, actually went to war against each other. So they were very separate. Okay, very big part of the early Greeks. Here's kind of a landscape of some of the actual farmable land. You'll see the ruins on the top of this hill. This was the ruins of a Greek palace, if you will. But you'll look out, and this is looks like vineyards of some grapes and some olives. This is really about as flat as it gets. Most of Greece is even rockier and mountainous than this. Okay. All right, let's talk about the very first people that came to Greece. They weren't even considered Greeks, uh, but they are known as the Minoans, and they were the first people to live in the area of Greece. They settled on the island of Crete, um, which I showed you was this big island right below the big peninsula, and obviously they made a living building ships and trading pottery in these big, huge stone vases. I'll show you a picture in just a second. These stone vases held liquids, but also held food and grain. And people uh, all over the area wanted these stone vases. They're not just beautiful, but really well built. When this all happened, it was about sometime before 2000 BC. So if we know that's 2,000 years before Jesus, so this is about 4,000 years ago um, when the Minoans came. They reached their greatest power in 1500 BC. So that's about 3,500 years ago. And they were pretty powerful on the island. And then historians can't find any evidence of them. They just at in 1450 BC, they just they're vanished, right? There's no more uh, artifacts found from them, any evidence of them being there. And some believe that there were earthquakes that maybe came and created a big tsunami and wiped everybody out, or they were conquered by the next group of people who were known as the Mycenaeans, right? And so, kind of arguments about what could have been maybe a mixture of both. Here is a picture of a famous palace at Knos, um, Crete. This was a very famous Minoan king had this built. It is known to have had the very first toilet, which wasn't really much of a toilet, just a hole in the stone, but it was only for the king. So the king, life was good for him. Everyone else had to do their stuff outside. in a hole in the ground. Okay, pretty gross. Here's those stone vases I told you about. They were huge, and they were very. They held a lot of like materials, important things, and this is what they made a living at selling. The Mycenaeans came, maybe the people who conquered the Minoans, right? They came from Asia. They invaded the Greece mainland somewhere around 1900 BC. So we're talking about 3,900 years ago. And they are considered to be the first actual Greek people. So the Greek ancestry goes through them. They built huge kingdoms. They became the first Greek kings. They were a monarchy. They had a huge, strong military, and they conquered people. Um, and they basically set up the Greek culture. And for about close to 800 years, they were very, very strong. And then they got into too many wars, uh, and there were earthquakes, and they will collapse or fall in 1100 BC. And because they fall, some bad things happened. They stopped trading, okay, and a lot of poverty, and people actually began to just stop teaching others to write. They were all they could worry about was how do we get food. So they don't trade with others. Remember, they don't have a lot of food or land to farm, and now they're just so desperate they don't even teach people to write. It's really bad. It's kind of known as the Dark Ages of Greece. Okay, so that's the end of the Mycenaeans. Then a group of Greek people came from the north known as the Dorians, and they're basically going to save Greece. And they begin to move south, and they easily take over the Mycenaeans because the Mycenaeans are basically wiped out. They have new iron weapons instead of bronze, super strong. They have iron for farming tools. They're able to actually farm in some of the rocky land that couldn't be done before. They'll trade, a whole new trading system, a new writing system, which they learned from a group of people called the Phoenicians. And they actually create an alphabet, which have 24 letters, very close to ours. Um, and this Greek alphabet is really, really important. And it was a big major change. Okay, so the Dorians bring them out of the Dark Ages, which moves us into something known as colonies. So the population's growing so much now because of the Dorians. They've got food, they're trading with everyone. They wanted to, they needed to send people out. And so they began to set up colonies. Population on the mainland's too big, not enough food anymore because there's so many people now. So what do? Well, they send people, Greek people, to live in Italy, Spain, North Africa, and Asia. Of course, they had to send them and conquer that land. They had to take it. But they send people out now in these areas of Italy, Spain, North Africa, and Asia, and they're Greeks, and they begin to spread their Greek culture. And of course, they send food and items back. And because of this, Greece becomes super wealthy and important, and they make some big changes. They start to actually mint or create their own coins. And instead of exchanging, like trading, like I'll give you, hey, this duck for that bottle of wine. Instead, it's actually money. Pretty big deal, changes things kind of dramatically. And then, of course, they create this thing known as specialization, which they realized that you need to have certain jobs being in certain places. So if there was pottery found in one place of Greece, that's where they would then, if there was clay there, that's where they would decide to make pottery. If they found the materials to make iron, you wouldn't send those materials to the other side of Greece. You would just at that location make iron and make the weapons and the tools with it. So it's called specialization, where you have development of different kinds of jobs in different areas where the resources or are. And that's just a really big deal. We still do that today, and it made them really, really rich and powerful. And really, at this point, Greece is really becoming something strong. Okay, so we go from Minoans to some kind of earthquake, or they get defeated. The Mycenaeans come. They last about 800 years, really make things strong, big, huge military, lots of strong kings. Then because of earthquakes and war, they fall apart. The Dark Ages come. That's where the Dorians will come and kind of be the last ditch effort to save Greece. And after the Dorians, they save it, and they move into this thing called colonies, and they send people out, and they create their own money and a new alphabet and this thing called specialization. So that's really the basic beginning of Greece. And so, yeah, make sure you have all your notes. And yeah, thanks for listening. Have a great, great day. See ya.